It's Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman.
Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Thursday morning. Getting ready to roll into championship weekend here. Are we not, Elliot?
Oh, yeah.
It's a lack of championship weekend in terms of being ready around here.
That's correct.
I hope that all four teams are more ready than we are.
That's correct. I would hope so, for their sake.
Everybody all right today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Reed?
I'm doing fantastic, Tom.
Good. How are you over there, Lindsay? Okay? You're always so quiet, like a church mouse. You all right over there?
I'm great, yeah.
Yeah, has Casey offended you in any way this morning?
Nope, not this morning.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Case, how we looking?
We're looking good, Tom.
You got your Bengals lid on.
I do got my Bengals lid on.
You're already, you three guys are already talking about, you and Reed primarily, already talking about the Bengals schedule for next year. We are only 9 months away from that happening.
Yeah, only 9 months. It's always Bengals time, Tom. Bengals all around the clock.
That's
It's
right.
always
But
on
we
my
have,
mind.
so many guys on here, Brian B., and we have Everett, and we have some other guys, and they want us to talk baseball, baseball, baseball. That's what happens to our numbers. That's what happens. But I'm happy to talk about it. We do have some baseball news today. What's that?
So you don't want to talk baseball.
I'm all for talking baseball.
Don't
I'm
wanna
just
talk
saying that
Bengals
it is apparent when you just look at our numbers. I brought this up the other day. We are in the business of trying to please our audience and gain viewership. Now, maybe you can make the argument if we talked more baseball, we would gain more viewers. Right? But would we gain more than we apparently lose when we do talk baseball and not football?
I think the people love it. I think we need all red. That's why I wear my Reds hat today. All Reds. They're talking about all Bengals all the time. All Reds all the time.
Have you been to any of the Reds caravan stops?
I absolutely not.
Would you go?
No, absolutely.
Why?
Why not?
They're actually pretty. I actually have to say they're actually pretty good.
Because, and this is with all due love and respect and all that, I don't think the players that they've brought on those Reds caravans have been worthy of my attention. And I say that with love and respect.
That was incredibly insulting.
That
was incredibly insulting.
I just think if we're going to spend a couple hours in like a sweaty gym or wherever they're having these things,
They have them in the world's biggest indoor facility.
yeah, it's just
Spooky
like
Nook,
just a sweaty,
world renowned.
just a sweaty little gym, and I'm good. But I'm a fan of the Reds. I love the Reds.
Okay. All right. We'll get into some of David Bell's comments that I found very interesting that he made on one of the caravan stops apparently yesterday. Good morning, and we welcome you to Off the Bench, presented by our good friends at United Dairy Farmers. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10 to 12. You can join us on YouTube, Chatterbox Sports page. Bleh. We also broadcast live on X at C-Box Sports. And what is this? We should be on Rumble. Was that from,
This is from
Trace yesterday?
This is from Trace.
Yesterday.
What is Rumble?
It's some other.
It's a new social media site.
It is. It's all we
Yeah.
need. True Social,
Right.
Rumble.
Right.
What else? What's the other one you always talk about? That you guys have all your side chats on?
Discord.
Discord.
Is that another one?
Discord.
We can't go live on Discord, but yeah, we can chat after hours. We can sit here and talk with all the guys that watch our show every day.
Okay. Well, if you'd rather join us in podcast form, we invite you to do so. Just search Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman. You're dialed in. So who is Dan Pitcher? The guy chosen yesterday. He'll be announced in about an hour this morning to be the next Bengals offensive coordinator. Replaces Brian Callahan, who's now the head coach in Tennessee. He's only 37 years young. He grew up in New York, played quarterback at Columbia for a couple of years, transferred to SUNY Cortland. Those are New York schools all around the entire state of New York, where he won the Gagliardi Trophy. That is the Division III equivalent of the Heisman Trophy. He was a quarterback. He worked as a scout for the Colts to get everything started in 2016. The Bengals said, come on over as an offensive assistant under Marvin Lewis. Now, Zach Taylor kept Pitcher around as an assistant coach, made him the quarterback's coach just months before the team drafted Joe Burrow. Those three, along with Callahan, have worked hand in hand ever since. Now Pitcher is the offensive coordinator. Is he ready for this job? will he call plays? Something he has never done before. Anywhere. Nowhere. It stands to reason, right, that if Taylor didn't have Callahan call plays, and you think about all the experience Callahan had. I mean, it was night and day the experience Callahan had when he came to Cincinnati compared to pitcher coming to Cincinnati. So you got to figure, right? No way Zach Taylor hands off the offense to a guy with zero experience calling plays, right? Now, numerous teams really like pitcher. He interviewed for OC positions last year, was set for 3 more this year. Is this the right move? Should the Bengals have gone outside the building? A new voice, maybe a new fresh set of eyes. We'll talk about it today. Jay Morrison will join us tomorrow on the program to talk about this more in depth. Jim Harbaugh is back in the National Football League. After winning this year's college football playoff national championship, Harbaugh will take over as head coach of the LA Chargers. Wherever he goes, the guy wins and wins big. And I mean wins right now. If you go back and look at the teams before he got there, the year before they got there, and what they did his first year there, the numbers are staggering. University of San Diego, Stanford, the 49ers, where he went 44-19, got run. Going 44-19 with 3 divisional titles and a trip to the Super Bowl. Some people say he's tough to get along with. Then, of course, he goes to Michigan, his alma mater. 3 Big Ten titles, 3 straight wins over Ohio State after he started 0-5 against the Buckeyes. And this year's title, the first for his alma mater since 1997. So who replaces him at Michigan? It's almost a foregone conclusion. Sharon Moore will meet with AD Wade Manuel today and is expected to get the job. Moore was marvelous when he filled in for the suspended Harbaugh 4 games last year, won them all, including Penn State and Ohio State. Vic Fangio out after 1 year as defensive coordinator in Miami. Now, look, you talk about Zach Taylor and continuity, right? He's had all these guys. Callahan's the first guy that leaves. For Mike McDaniels in Miami, that means he will have 3 different defensive coordinators in his 3 seasons as head coach. Joe Barry cut loose as DC in Green Bay. And then there's Tom Telesco. Did you see this story? He's the new GM of the LA Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders, forgive me. Now, are you surprised? Do you really care? Probably not, right? I only bring this up because you talk about living right. Here's a guy that's been the general manager for the Chargers since 2013. That is a lifetime for a GM in the National Football League. They went to the playoffs his first year. They went to the playoffs 5 years later, a total of 3 times in 11 seasons. They won 2 postseason games, the last one coming 6 years ago. He hired and fired 3 terrible coaches. But Raiders owner Mark Davis says, that's my guy. And in baseball, very interesting move made by the Brewers yesterday. They signed former Phillies slugger Rhys Hoskins to a 2-year, $34 million contract. Hoskins missed all of last season's with an ACL tear suffered in spring training. The prior 4 years, he averaged better than 30 home runs per season, and his OPS was 25% higher than the league average. So teams like the Brewers, they got to take a chance. Smaller market teams, rebuilding, new manager, et cetera, under Pat Murphy. So good stuff there, and we hope he's healthy. Although you don't want to see him do any damage to your Cincinnati Reds, do you, Elliot? Rhys Hoskins. That guy is a power hitter.
I would have loved him as a Red. I would have loved him as a Red, but that's okay. We got our guys. We went out and spent a whole lot of money this offseason, so we're ready to roll, baby. NL Central, Tom, it's going to be the most competitive division in baseball this year.
A lot of talk right now, and we'll stay on this theme with baseball for a minute before we get to pitcher, because that was our last story in the monologue, is that you talk about the Central, and there are a lot of articles being written right now all over by some of the top baseball writers in the country about, basically after a complete explosion in the free agent market, primarily exercised by the Dodgers in terms of the big money. you've got a guy who played himself into the MVP conversation last year with your Chicago Cubs, right, in Bellinger, right? You got a guy who won the National League Cy Young last year, right? Blake Snell averaged about 5 innings a game.
Is Blake Snell still not signed?
I don't think he's signed, is he?
I don't know.
There are a lot of big-name guys still out there. A lot of them. And, we've seen a few moves made here, made there, all that kind of. Initially, the Cardinals went on this big spending spree. And they go in and they bring in 3 starters. I'm not so sure how good those guys are. I think Sonny Gray's good. I think the other ones there. Did Jordan Montgomery ever end up signing with anybody yet?
Rangers, right?
Well, he was with the Rangers.
He went. I don't know if Jordan.
I don't
Montgomery,
think he
I'm
signed
trying to catch
either.
up on this. Yeah, you're right though.
I mean, there are a lot of big-time guys out there, man.
Yeah, he's still out there. You're absolutely right. Besides what the Dodgers have done, and until the Dodgers made those moves, that was kind of the holdup, right? Like everyone's like, well, you got to see where Shohei goes, and then the rest of the market will kind of fall into place. Shohei signs, and then I apologize, I don't know the Japanese pitcher that's coming over. His name Yamamoto. Oh, we got to see where Yamamoto goes before the pitching market really starts to settle. Well, he signs, and there still isn't a whole lot of moves. Yeah, I mean, like one team, like my team, the Chicago Cubs, were rumored to be making all these moves this offseason. Really haven't done a whole lot. With all these big names still out there. I mean, you mentioned Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, the guys like former multiple-time All-Star like Matt Chapman still out there. So there's a lot of good names that are still looking for places to play.
I mean, really if you wanted to overhaul your team and you had the cash, and the Cubs have the cash,
I don't know if they need overhaul.
you could just go on a spending spree here in the next 2 weeks.
Right.
Spring training, I mean, it's right around the corner here now. We're banging on the door of February. February, pitchers and catchers report, and so do position players. And then there's Joey Votto, right?
That's right.
There have been some rumors out there the Angels could be interested in him. He made the comment, you may remember, Votto did on X, that there were 4 teams interested in him. He did not name who those teams are. You got to believe one of them's Toronto. If for no other reason, it's his hometown. They have a spot where they could use him. And most recently, there have been rumors about San Diego and also the Angels. Now, the Angels are they're doing a nice job spending some money. Let me back up. If you agree that it's a good thing that a team goes out and spends money, given Robert Stevenson $30-something million a year, that's right, the former Robert Stevenson of the Reds. Remember him? Number 1 round draft pick.
Yeah.
He missed the first 3 months of last season, pitched great the last 3 months, and makes that into a 3-year, $33 million deal. Did you see that?
I don't know if there's a team that spends their money worse than the Los Angeles Angels.
Nobody.
I like as an American League team. I loved Mike Trout growing up. I loved Shohei. I remember Shohei was over in Japan before he got there. I was like, dude, I love this Angels team, and they just never get it right. You know, one name that I don't think has signed yet that is incredibly interesting as I'm looking around these top free agents that are still available. We're talking about guys like I don't think Jorge Soler is signed.
No, nope.
Right? There's one name that is still out there, and like I don't think Clayton Kershaw has a team. I don't think Clayton Kershaw signed a deal to the Dodgers. Now, it's very, very likely that he will go back to the Dodgers, but Clayton Kershaw doesn't have a team at this very moment. There's still so much talent out there. So much.
Oh, yeah.
How would you feel about the Reds signing Clayton Kershaw?
I would love it. But it's not going to happen. But I would love it, to answer your question. I think.
But if that was that was almost the perfect guy you were looking for to help all these young pitchers, right?
Yeah.
Right? Veteran guy, great dude. No debate about that.
Right.
I mean, totally on his game, on the field and off the field. Now, is he the Clayton Kershaw that he was piling up the Cy Young Award? No. But it's still Clayton Kershaw. I am fascinated that somebody has not signed that guy.
I mean, he more than likely is going to go to the Dodgers.
Yeah, more than likely.
And continue there. It's interesting that they haven't just re-signed because it's not like the Dodgers have been shy of spending money
Yeah.
this offseason. You know what? The greatest stat, I saw this when they were talking about like Billy Wagner and the Hall of Fame stuff, was they pulled up the all-time ERA leaders in the modern era. And the guys that are up there are Mariano Rivera, closer, Billy Wagner, closer,
Yep.
a bunch of other relievers, and you know who's nestled in the midst of them? Clayton Kershaw. No other starter, I believe, is in the top 5 or top 10 that's in the live ball era than Clayton Kershaw, which is truly, his numbers are staggering.
You know, a lot of people thought that this was going to happen with Kershaw with the Dodgers, and then they go out and sign James Paxton yesterday.
That's right.
I mean, Paxton,
It's an old left-hand, right?
left-hander, same kind of stage in his career. He's had very good success. If I'm not mistaken, Paxton has won a Cy Young, I think, many moons ago in the American League. No. And a lot of people think that might be closing the door on the future Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw. Going to be interesting to see. All right. David Bell made some comments yesterday, and okay, in baseball we know now in the National League you have the designated hitter, okay? So that is another option for a manager where he can get guys in the lineup that need playing time. He was asked during the caravan stop somewhere yesterday about playing time, that after they brought in Jeimer Candelario, they basically have 7 guys that can play the infield, okay? And in no particular order, whether it's Candelario, whether it's Encarnacion Strand, India, De La Cruz, Matt McLean, Marte, and Steer. So you have 7 guys. Now, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Steer will be an outfielder to start the season and probably will stay there, right? India has been open to the conversation about getting time in the outfield. Okay, that's fine. And look, there are a lot of at-bats. If you go back and look at all the at-bats, the Kevin Newmans and the Nick Senzels and all of these guys last year piled up, there are a ton of at-bats to be had by all of these young and talented players. But when I'm sitting there trying to do the math, Elliot, help me here with this a minute. I'm sitting here doing the math. Candelario is going to play every day, virtually every day, right?
Yep.
McLean is going to play every day.
Correct.
Okay. Of all the guys in that entire group that I just mentioned, we're taking Steer out, so now we're down to 6. Okay? So you've got 4 infield spots. You have a designated hitter spot. So there you have 5 of the 6 remaining players, right?
That's right.
Okay, so everybody can get a day off and all that kind of thing, which is great. You're going to need it over 162 games. But, I always, and I don't have an opinion on it one way or the other. I don't think there's a perfect way, and I don't think that there's necessarily a bad way. But, you'll get a lot of fans that'll say, man, I need to know what that lineup is every day. I need guys playing the same position, knowing where they're going to play when they come to the ballpark. The flip side of all that is Chris Bryant, back when he was with the Cubs and won an MVP, he's playing left, he's playing right, occasionally center, he's playing third, he's playing first. With DH by the time they had put that in, and he said that's what made it fun coming to the ballpark every day. Mm-hmm. But with young players, and Bryant was young then, he's still young. I wonder, and David Bell says it's a perfect scenario. He knows his team better than I do. I guess we have to trust him in that regard.
Yeah, we knew this was going to be an issue, but it's a good issue to have. It's Jonathan India this is a massive year for him. He's going to have to prove a lot of the haters wrong if he wants to continue to play for the Cincinnati Reds or really baseball in general. I think he's going to be a baseball player for a long time in the MLB. But despite that, you have Noelvi Marte, who I think is one of the better, who had one of the better seasons of the rookies last year. His spot's now going to be occupied by Candelario, depending on if Strand is able to keep his high intensity up at first. So you have all these guys, essentially, they're all on the team and they're all going to contribute, but they're all basically auditioning to get their definite spot, is how I would look at it. You got to play hot, and you got to stay hot throughout the year to earn your spot. I think Ellie's going to keep himself at shortstop the whole year long. They're not going to bench Ellie, and I don't think Matt McClain's going to get benched at second. But you have Strand, Candelario, Jonathan India, and Noelvi Marte are the 4 X factors, and Candelario is going to play every day, like you said. So then really it's 3 fighting for just a couple spots. I would venture to say Jonathan India will be an outfielder this year. I think that's what's going to happen, just for playing time purposes. But like you said, I think this is going to be an interesting note for the Reds. I really do.
Okay. Nick Kirby makes a comment, winning's a lot more fun than losing with a consistent lineup. Okay. And Justin says David Bell has earned the benefit of the doubt, the way he juggled those guys around last year. I think there's truth to that.
What guys are going to be those swing guys? Because, like, you look at the top teams in Major League Baseball, they consistently have one guy that if you put together the top 9 hitters, like your opening day lineup, your Game 7 lineup, this guy might not play. But you look at his stats, he plays 130 games. He just plays 4 different positions. I'm looking at like a guy like Chris Taylor for the Dodgers. Like you put together a starting lineup for the Dodgers, he's not every day at shortstop. He's not every day in left field. He's not every day at third base. But over the course of a season, he's going to play 30 games, 40 games at each of those positions. Who are those swing guys for the Reds?
Jonathan India is the big one.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan India has lost a spot at second base.
Steer's going to play a bunch of positions.
Steer's going to play a bunch of positions. I think Candelario is going to play all over the infield, first and third, and DH as well. So those are the big ones. I think Noelvi Marte could start experimenting outside of third base as well.
I guess the better question is who has their definite spot? McClain?
McClain has his definite spot, and Ellie has his definite spot.
Like up in the middle too, right?
Yep. I think the middle infield positions are set.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right, let's shift gears over to football and the whole Dan Pitcher thing. We were talking about this. We assumed all along, even though they went through the drill, checking boxes. And look, and I don't mean to. When I say that, I should probably correct myself because the Rooney Rule is a great rule. It is a phenomenal rule. And I am highly in favor of the Rooney Rule in every way that there is because there are not enough African-American coaches in the National Football League. They've not been given the same chance as a lot of other guys. So the NFL put that rule in. And so you have to make sure before you do any hiring, even if it's a guy on your staff that you want. And there's no doubt the Bengals wanted the guy, Pitcher, as the offensive coordinator, right? They knew that. And we said that there was probably some, backroom deal, and there's nothing wrong with it. By just saying, hey, look, it's up to you if you want to go interview with those teams. You were supposed to get on a plane Tuesday night, but you're our guy. We love you here, okay? They may have learned something from the other candidate they brought in. That maybe it's a guy they want to bring in who used to be a former offensive line coach, right? They talked to him about the offensive coordinator job. You never know. So, fine. They ultimately agree that Pitcher is the guy. First of all, that is a slam dunk, Casey, that tells you Zach Taylor will be the play caller next year. Not even remotely debatable.
Yeah, I mean, Reed and I yesterday, we went live not live, we did a little short recording,
right.
And we basically said that the buzzword here is just continuity. I mean, that's all this hiring was. It was to have the same scheme and the same pecking order, so to speak. And Dan Pitcher, I think the organization likes him a lot. But, yeah, you're right, Tom. I don't think there's anything that's going to change drastically about this team moving forward next year. Now, we might see some changes just because it's a collaborative effort between Zach and Dan and the rest of the staff that they want to start running the ball more. But I feel like Zach Taylor is still going to be calling plays. I think Reed and I have both now come to the conclusion that the play calling thing is just a dumb thing to get upset about because
not always, but as a blanket statement.
Yeah,
yes.
As a blanket statement. It's more about the scheme that's more important than the actual play calls on the field more times than not. But, Dan Pitcher, I felt like really deserved this job anyways. You look at what he was able to do 4 years with Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow's a top quarterback in this league, and he had some part in having that work out. And very, very, very good for Dan Pitcher. I want to also just point out that they actually had a plan in place for now years at this point to have Dan Pitcher become the offensive coordinator, to have that succession plan in place. They had Alex Van Pelt. They brought in Dan Pitcher as the assistant quarterbacks coach. Alex Van Pelt leaves for a job. Dan Pitcher moves in the quarterbacks coach. They extend Dan Pitcher. They bring in another assistant quarterbacks coach, Brad Cragthorpe. I don't know how to exactly pronounce his last name, but Brad Cragthorpe is now the new quarterbacks coach, more than likely. He's still got the title of assistant quarterbacks coach, but I'm sure he's going to fill in for that position right away. Their succession plan worked. It worked. They knew that Brian Callahan was on the move probably. They got lucky last year keeping both those guys, and now we have Dan Pitcher as our OC. Continuity. That's the buzzword. Continuity.
We'll see if it works. It fell to plan. It fell into place that they're thing. It. But here's my biggest takeaway from it, Tom, is one, it is incredibly refreshing to see exactly what Casey said. In a league that is constantly revolving doors and firing coaches, getting guys out, the Bengals sit down, and they really have for a while, and said, hey, we want some continuity in this building. And then secondly, it is nice it's refreshing to see this organization really make plans in advance. We saw this in the draft a couple years ago when they drafted Dax Hill in the first round. You're like, why the heck are we drafting a safety in the first round when we have Jesse Bates and Von Bell? This is a guy that's supposed to be an immediate impact player. They said, well, we know these guys are probably out the door in a year. We want to kind of fill the cupboard, start getting the cupboard full for when those things empty. So the Bengals are operating in years in advance. At least it seems that way in a couple of instances. I very much like the continuity. I also would have liked to see a guy from the outside come in, whether that would have been the quarterback's coach, the offensive coordinator, because as I said, I think collaboration is so important to success. Getting someone that's been successful somewhere else and saying, hey, can you get some fresh set of eyes, the cliche here, can you look at this offense and see what you can do? But, yeah, I mean, continuity is so important. I will admit something as a Bengals fan that I'm incredibly tired of. I am growing so tired of the 2019 LSU Tigers talk.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Joe Brady, who was the passing game coordinator, did a fantastic job as the OC in the second half of the year for the Buffalo Bills. Everyone's like, hey, let's go get Joe Brady. Let's bring him in.
But in fairness, I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean in fairness now, when Brady took over for Ken Dorsey this year as the offensive coordinator, I mean that offense absolutely exploded, especially in the run game.
I know
there's a track record there.
You're right. There's a track record for anyone that was a part of the 2019 LSU team that there was some success there. People talk all the time. Let's bring Justin Jefferson in. Let's get Joe Brady in. Thaddeus Moss is available. Let's get Thaddeus Moss. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be free here. I guarantee when Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a free agent, we're going to be talking, hey, let's bring him in. Let's get the 2019. When Zach Taylor gets fired, we're going to be calling up Ed Orgeron. I'm tired of it, Tom. I'm tired of the 2019 LSU talk. It's the greatest college football team that I've ever seen. Joe Burrow had the best college football season that I've ever seen. But listen, it's 2024. Let's move past it.
I never understood it anyways. I get why people wanted it, but in terms of actual scheme, Joe Brady's scheme worked because they had Josh Allen. They were able to run the ball as successfully as they were able to because they used what's called RPOs, where they either run, they pass, or they option, where Josh Allen was just running free everywhere. So
but isn't that part though of the offensive coordinator's job is to understand your personnel?
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that he would come here and run the same thing.
Yeah, no doubt, but you can't. Hang on, you just said run the same thing?
I said you can't run the same thing.
Right, you can't run the same thing.
Right, but that doesn't mean that he's not adaptable to being able to do that.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but if you look at what their offense did do besides running the ball, Stephon Diggs completely disappeared. Their whole entire passing game took a massive hit.
Well, they got dropping the ball all over the place. They really did. I mean, Diggs, even the tight ends dropping balls. I mean, what's he going to do? But I'm with you. I mean, every time I turn around, it's another guy that knows Burrow. Seriously.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, And a lot of that has to do with, but I mean, you look at Cragthorpe here. Okay, now he spent time at LSU, but he was already here when Burrow got here. He was hired as a very young man. His grandfather was a college head football coach at 3 different schools, including in the Pac-12. His dad was a head football coach for many, many years in college football, in Tulsa and also at Louisville for 3 years. So, I mean, this guy he's like Jim Harbaugh. He has grown up football, and John Harbaugh his entire life. That's what he's done. That's who he is. That's what he is. And he is getting a golden chance to be the quarterback's coach now with the Bengals and working with Burrow. But I'm with you. I don't know. I still think the offense has underperformed in relation to the talent level that they have. It's not to say they haven't had great games, and it's not to say that their numbers at the end of the year, a couple of years ago, they're in the top 10 in offense, top 12, whatever it is, top 5 scoring, maybe it is. No debate about that. But I think all of us would have to admit, this offense, even with Burrow healthy, has been a lot of this.
Well, it's
been a lot of this.
Well, that's why you think that. That's why some people perceive this as underachieving. If they never had those performances that you sit there and are in awe, like the Ravens back in 2021 where Joe Burrow throws for 1,000 yards in 2 games. If you never have those games, then you never perceive that the team can do it consistently, right?
Right.
Like if you don't have those, it's none of this. It's more of just a steady down climb. So, yeah, do we want to have more consistency here? Sure. Would we like to see more points in the postseason? Sure. They're 5-2 in the postseason, but I get it. Like, right? There hasn't been that 35-point explosion in the postseason yet that teams like Patrick Mahomes, teams like Josh Allen, teams like the Lamar Jackson's Ravens have done. Haven't seen that yet. So that's undoubtedly so. I do think that this offense has been very good over the past 3 years. I mean, 2021, it was a top 10 offense. 2022 was a top 5 offense. Last year, and I know this is cherry picking and all those things, when Joe Burrow was healthy, in that 5-game stretch when Joe Burrow could move around before he got hurt, they played 5 games. They went 4-1. Of those 5 games, 3 of those teams played in the divisional round. The 49ers, the Texans, and the Bills.
Yep.
And they went 4-1 in that stretch, averaging close to 30 points a game. So, like, this offense, I understand the consistency problems, but in no way, stretch your imagination, am I worried about the offense going forward. Truly.
No, and I think at this point, if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, that's the only thing that matters. So if we're gonna argue about semantics a little bit here and there, and I agree with Tom to a certain degree that it does seem like the Bengals are due for one of the worst collapses in at least one game a season. And that's the part where I think you separate the best from the best. Like the Chiefs lose games, sure, but they never lose like 30-3 to the Browns. I think their worst loss this year was like 24-7 to the Broncos. But they don't go completely away ever. And I do think the Bengals sometimes do that. And again, we were talking about this before the show. There's also the concern for, you have to start hot eventually. At some point, you can't start 1-3, 0-3, 1-4. You have to start it right from the jump, and that is a coaching thing. I do believe that. Not playing guys in the preseason, not getting them ready for the start of the season is a concern. But I think with Pitcher, with Taylor, the Bengals will be fine. The Bengals will be just as good as they've been in the past several years, assuming everybody's healthy. We were killed by injuries this year, obliterated by injuries. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, everybody was hurt. So if we're healthy, the offense is still going to be fine. We're going to be okay.
I'll tell you, I mean, for you guys to sit here and say you're not worried about the offense next year with the guys that they're potentially losing, I mean, it boggles my mind. When you sit here and think about how bad the offensive line was this year. Okay? And truth be told, Jonah Williams wasn't great, but Jonah Williams wasn't terrible either.
No.
I mean, in fact, he did a pretty nice job when all was said and done, changing positions this year. Yeah. Was he great? No. Was he better than average? Damn right. He was better than average. Veteran player, been around a while. Now, were you paying him too much money? Nothing they could do about that. He had already had a contract. But now all of a sudden, some of these mock drafts are starting already, and believe me, we're not going down that road for a while. I mean, we're not going there.
Let's do it.
But, a lot of the mock drafts that have come out here and just in the last 3 or 4 days are predicting the Bengals are going to draft a tackle out of Alabama. That there is a lot of very high-end in Mel Kiper's top 25 prospects overall. 7 of the top 25 are offensive tackles. And they're talking about drafting a kid out of Alabama, right? 2-year starter, called him a mauler in the run game and very good in the pass. Okay, that's fine. Didn't we hear the same stuff about Jackson Carman? 3-year starter at Clemson, left tackle, right? Protected Trevor Lawrence in his blind side for 3 years. Couple national championships. How'd that work out? How's it worked out with them drafting and developing offensive line? Their 3 best offensive linemen have all been free agents.
Right.
Okay. And so now we're supposed to not be worried about their offense, if I'm hearing everybody in the room right. And I think that's what everybody just said, if I'm not mistaken. So now we're not worried about the offense next year. You have a brand new offensive coordinator next year. You're going to need a brand new right tackle next year. Are you trusting the left guard next year? You got a center and a right guard who at times were good and at times they downright stunk. They're a year older. You're facing the possibility of T. Higgins not being here. You're certainly facing the possibility of Tyler Boyd not be here. And you guys aren't worried about the offense because of one guy being healthy? There's a chance Joe Mixon's not here next year. Say what you want about him. 1,000-yard rusher last season. When they gave him the ball, the cat does okay. He can catch it out of the backfield. I would argue with a stronger offensive line, he's a 1,200 to 1,300-yard rusher per season, even now. And you guys tell me you're not worried about the offense because Joe Burrow is going to be healthy?
I think that the quarterback position in the NFL, especially if you have a top-tier quarterback, is truly if you had to place how much percentage a player matters, it's like 85%.
85's not.
Let me give you an example. A lot of people have been saying the Chiefs' offense isn't great, right?
Right.
So the Chiefs have Travis Kelce and they have Rashee Rice. Outside of that, Patrick Mahomes has 0 people to throw to. 0. Negative people. You have Isaiah Pacheco, who's been very good. So next year, if you're able to sign Mixon, if you have Jamar Chase, you're going to have T. Higgins presumably under a tag, or you trade him and you'll replace that talent with a different wide receiver. I think you'll still be able to compete at a high level, especially with Joe Burrow. If you don't have Joe Burrow, we have nothing. And I think at this point, we have to consider Joe Burrow to be the guy that he's been over the past 2 years, maybe not last year because he was hurt.
Here's the thing that, like, you say the reason that we aren't worried is because one guy being healthy. Yes, I truly believe that if Joe Burrow's healthy and Jamar Chase is healthy, that this offense will be fine, if not good, if not one of the best in the league. I'll give you an analogy here. If you have a defense like Lindsey Steelers, right? And you look at that defense, and they're losing a safety. They're losing a linebacker, new DC coming in. Are you overly worried about that defense? No, because you know why? Because you got that one guy, you got TJ Watt coming off the edge. Now here on the offensive side, that's what we've got. We've got an elite guy, or at least a perceived elite guy. When he's healthy, he appears to be elite in Joe Burrow. We don't know how it's going to be after that second injury. Could come back, and we don't know, right? There is a question mark there, and that's the biggest concern is Joe Burrow still that guy coming off a second season-ending injury? That's the biggest concern, honestly, Tom. It's not the offensive coordinator because we know Zach Taylor's still going to call the same plays. It's not. We still have a top 3 wide receiver in Jamar Chase, and I think that we can supplement what T. Higgins provided this year in either free agency or in the draft, and we certainly can supplement what T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd combined gave this team. Jonah Williams, that's a big miss. Now that is going to be that's the biggest thing. I think that's much a larger loom than what we're going to do with T. Higgins. Joe Mixon, you know my take on running backs. So all things considered, the phrase that I've said multiple times on this show, and I will say until I don't think it's true anymore, is that if you keep number 9 upright, you give him time, I think this offense is going to be great. Because when he was healthy this year, as I previously mentioned, this team was one of the best, if not the best offenses in the league. That was only a 5-game stretch, but they played some tough teams. And I'm cherry picking here. But I don't know. When he's been here for a full season, he's quarterbacked the 2 best offensive seasons by a quarterback in this franchise's history. And I get all the questions loom, all the things, but from what I've seen with 9, you keep him upright, I'm not worried about it.
And not to mention the offense looked good under Jake Browning. And I think that is something – and he didn't really even utilize Jamar Chase. I would say Jamar Chase had 1 good game with Jake Browning.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's
Really
accurate.
only had 1 or 2 big plays.
Yeah.
Truth be told.
And Jake Browning was able to figure it out. They kind of changed things up, utilized the screen game. So I think Zach Taylor is capable of figuring it out without some of these said superstars. If you lose T. Higgins, I think he can figure it out. I don't think Charlie Jones will be able to
Downtown Charlie Jones
will be able to replicate T. Higgins. I don't think Yoshi's as good as T. Higgins, but I think they can be serviceable. I think they can be utilized in a way that the offense is still productive. I truly believe that. So I'm not concerned about Dan Pitcher being the offensive coordinator. I'm not concerned about anything other than what Reed says, and that is truly the most important thing is Joe Burrow has to be healthy this year. He has to be.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, do we really know? And look, we probably shouldn't know because, there's this HIPAA thing out there. And look, we all want our health, privacy. But look, I said this about the Reds injuries last year, and I'll continue to say it until I go to my grave, which might be this afternoon. I don't believe anybody when it comes to this stuff. I don't believe any of them. When they told us that Hunter Green was going to be missing 10 days, who was the first guy that told you around here, don't buy it? When they told you Lodolo going to miss a couple of starts, right? No. I hope it's true, but I don't believe any of them. And it's not that they're deliberately lying to you. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm not suggesting that Tim Kremchek with the Reds or the Kettering team doctors with the Bengals are lying to anybody. I'm just saying I don't believe what they tell me. Those are 2 things can be right at the same time because they're only available to share with you so much. Burrow had made the comment about, I'm hoping OTAs. Well, I hope he's right. But what if he's not? What if he's not? What if we drag into now, Casey, another year of training camp? No Joe Burrow to be found. Can't get him on the field. They came out and said this year, which I found to be very telling. I think most people let this one slip, into Never Never Land. There were people, including Joe Burrow, who made the comment they wish they would have played in the preseason. They wish they would have gotten some reps in the preseason. There were a number of players on offense who said that. Not media, not former Bengals. No, these were current players. Okay, well, you got Burrow coming back. What if all of a sudden now, we're drifting into training camp again? Here we go with this dance again, okay? And then we get into the whole, you can't play. You even said it. You can't play Burrow in the preseason if he's coming back from an injury, right? Okay, well, do you play him if he's healthy and ready to go? He hadn't played football since November or October, whatever it was. That's why, I don't know how anybody in their right mind can tell me that you're going to let conceivably Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jonah Williams, Joe Mixon all walk out the door. You got a quarterback coming back from a very serious wrist injury, and people are not worried about the offense?
What happened to the Chiefs, Tom?
We're not talking about the Chiefs.
Well,
I'm talking about the greatest, one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks in the history of the league.
5.
He's playing in the AFC Championship game for the 6th straight season. He is never, Never, he is never hurt.
Right.
He's won 2 Super Bowls and played in 3. Don't compare the Chiefs to the Bengals because there is no comparison. between the Chiefs and the Bengals. N-U-N, none.
I don't want to compare the Chiefs to the Bengals.
You just brought them up.
I want to be the Chiefs, Tom.
Well, of course you do.
I want to fall. This is what I'm talking about with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is where we find out what this organization, not just Joe Burrow, not just Zach Taylor, but this organization is made of. Can we, when you pay a guy top dollar like the Bengals paid Joe Burrow, you fall into these problems that are, you're going to have guys that need to be paid. You can't pay them because of the salary cap. Guys are walking out the door. You're going to miss on some draft pick. All these things. Offensive coordinators, after success, they leave. You got to fill those replacements. When you succeed in this league, everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone wants the Jesse Bates. Everyone wants the T. Higgins. Everyone wants the Brian Callahans.
That's right.
Other people want the Dan Pitchers.
That's right.
Can you keep some guys in the building, and can you replace them? When I say I want to be the Chiefs, everything that we talk about with the Cincinnati Bengals has happened to the Chiefs. They lost their running back, Kareem Hunt. They lost their wide receiver, Tyreek Hill. They lost their left guard, Orlando Brown Jr. They lost their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. These are all symptoms of succeeding in this league like the Bengals have with a healthy Joe Burrow for the last 2 years.
Yep.
So when I bring up the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not saying the Cincinnati Bengals are the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
I say I want them to be the Kansas City Chiefs, as every team in the NFL does. So, yeah, these are just problems. These are symptoms of success. How do you deal with them? And that's what the Bengals are going to have to figure out. Now, the one thing that I know is that if you've got an elite quarterback, you put yourself in front of the 8 ball. You put yourself ahead of most teams in this league. And here in Cincinnati, we believe we have an elite quarterback based off what we've seen. Is there some injury problems? Is there some question marks about can he stay on the field? Sure. Because he's missed two halves of seasons now. He has missed almost every preseason.
Yep.
There's some question marks there. But when he's out on that field, this team looks pretty dang good. So I'm not going to worry about the offense until I perceive that there's things to worry. If they come out in all of the stop gaps that they've had, whoever they get to play right tackle isn't playing well. That's a worry. I'm going to worry then. If Dan Pitcher isn't scheming with Zach Taylor to get guys open, I'm going to worry then.
Yeah.
If whoever we have to replace T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd aren't catching passes, I will worry then. If Joe Mixon, who doesn't come back, or whoever we get to replace him, can't break a tackle, I'll worry then. But at this moment, if Nine's going to be healthy, that's the only thing I'm worried about. Is he healthy? And you're right. There's some question marks about, like, why don't we know enough about this injury?
And we're not going to learn anything about it.
We don't know
We're going
anything
to find out when they start showing up when they're supposed to be there.
Right. So that's why I brought up the Chiefs. That's why I say I'm not worried.
All right. I look at Kansas City and everything you just said is true, but the two constants. They can let an Orlando Brown Jr. walk out the door, and they go out and get a guy who's a younger version of him, that arguably this year was a better version of him. They find a way to bring in offensive linemen, develop them, and don't spend stupid money on them, and yet they get the most out of them. And here they are again. We talk about these elite quarterbacks, the Burrows, the Jalen Hurts, the Justin Herberts. We talk about all these guys. Who's the one guy every year still standing? There's only one. Your guy.
My guy.
Patrick Mahomes. That's Reed's guy.
That's Reed's guy.
He should be everybody's guy.
I mean, he is. I mean, I think he proved a lot just this season alone. But, yeah, I mean, Bengals have lots of questions to answer. I think that when you have number 9, just like Reed said, you feel like you're in a pretty good spot. You're in front of the 8 ball. I will say this, and I know that you'll probably go back to you can't really trust what you hear, but Joe Burrow said that he expects T. Higgins back. I expect that they're going to probably tag him. If they can't get a deal done, he'll be back. So there's that answer.
Yep.
And then the right tackle is a huge question mark. I know you don't want to go in the draft stuff, so we won't go there. But there is some options in free agency, and free agency is, a month away from now, Reed?
Yep.
Something like that?
Right.
Yep.
So Yeah, we'll have to just keep an eye on the more developments, see if there's any cuts, because there's another big deal that we have to talk about too. Is like, we're not getting a whole lot of production out of guys that are getting paid a whole lot of money, like you said. I mean, the guard spot, center spot, the right or the left end spot, the third defensive tackle spot, all those positions that we paid a lot of money towards aren't resulting in a whole lot of production. So that's maybe something we also have to get ready for moving forward.
And it makes you wonder if not following the Chiefs' model on numerous areas, they have put all of their draft pick stock into defensive players. They let the offensive guys walk out the door. They'll plug out a hole. Juju. They'll bring in Scantling. They'll bring in all these different guys. Some hit, some don't. They hit the lottery with the Rice kid this year, right? They still got Pacheco. They hit the lottery with him for sure. What's he, a 7th-round pick? Something like that?
Something like that.
Right? So, but again, starts with the offensive line. But then they just go and they load up on defensive players. They got all pros all over the field in 1 year, just like that, after drafting them and developing them the last 2 years on defense. The Bengals don't have those guys. I mean, you can say that what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank on the corner? Taylor Britt. He's going to be a Pro Bowl player. Dax Hill a Pro Bowl player in another year or two from now?
Jordan Battle's all rookie.
We'll
he was
find
all
out.
rookie. He was all rookie.
Solid all rookie player, right? I mean, we'll find out. Turner. We'll find out about all these guys. Miles Murphy. We'll find out about all of them.
Yeah, the difference that you're saying there isn't really that we didn't focus on defensive players. That's not it at all. It's that they went out and got guys that would produce right away, that were starter ready as soon as they walked in the door.
Who did?
The Chiefs versus the Bengals. The Bengals got guys that
Well, if you
were
look at most of their
question marks.
secondary and defensive line, those aren't free agent players. The Bengals have far more free agent players than the Chiefs on defense.
Oh,
Far
no
more.
doubt. But just in the last couple of seasons, like we've focused heavily on the first couple rounds on defense is what I'm getting at. Like,
So yeah, when the Bengals were on Joe Burrow's rookie contract, when they drafted Joe Burrow and they get T. Higgins and Jamar, they used the draft to get offensive players. They used their free agent money to get defensive players.
Von Bell, Hendrickson, all those guys.
That is completely switched
Yeah.
now. Because they go, all right, now we got to put money on our offensive side because we like our offensive pieces. We're going to put money in Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, some offensive line guys, and we will draft the defense.
And I would argue, too, that the Chiefs were actually like that when Mahomes first entered in the league, too. I mean, they had the Honey Badger, they had Jadavius Ward, they had the Frank Clark. They had a lot of guys that ended up walking out that door to go get deals other places. The difference is the Bengals have kind of extended some of those guys, let them linger on a little bit longer than they probably should have. And now we're having questions about Sam Hubbard and B.J. Hill and maybe even our linebackers now. Yeah, it's a tough spot. I think they're in similar paths, but I guess they kind of took different trajectories, and now the Bengals are kind of paying for it at this very moment.
There's some people in the chat that are bringing up the Chiefs division. And look, there's no question the AFC North is better the last year.
I think that's a tired take too, Tom.
What's that?
I think the West doesn't get enough credit.
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is you can really only say the AFC North has been a great division this year. I mean, because the Browns have traditionally stunk every year like clockwork, right? The Steelers have been basically a 500 game or two over 500 team for a number of years now. That's what they are right now. They haven't won a playoff game in forever, right? So don't tell me how great they are. They haven't had a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger left there. When he was there, they were great. But, and the Ravens, look, when Lamar's on the field, they're the best team in the league. There have been a lot of games he wasn't the best player in the league. But I'm just saying, you can't cherry pick. You can't say the reason the Bengals offense is not as good as the Chiefs is because of the division they play in. You can't say that because they have done it in their division when they put up those offenses that Reed referred to 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Okay? They put up all those numbers. They did those same things when they were playing all those teams 6 times a year. Okay? I mean, the Chiefs division is not great, but it's not brutal. I mean, the Broncos weren't brutal this year. The Raiders weren't brutal this year. I don't think the Chargers are much, and they got a lot of issues, and we're going to get to them here in a minute when we talk about Harbaugh. But, I mean, look, was it as good this year? No. Last year? Probably not. But you also have to remember that the Chiefs, like the Bengals this year, they play a first-place schedule every single year. They're playing the Eagles. They're playing the Bengals. They're playing the Bills. They are playing the Cowboys. They are playing fill-in 49ers. They're playing them all every single year.
We act like the AFC West. When people go like the AFC West isn't very good, we act like it's one of the South divisions, like the NFC South or like the AFC Southwest for the past few years. People use this same argument against Tom Brady for the longest time. That AFC East isn't very good. Do you guys realize that those three teams in the AFC West have to play the Chiefs twice a year? Like, go ahead and put two L's on their record. Like, Patrick Mahomes, look at his in-conference record. It's incredible. The reason that the AFC East was so bad for 2 decades is because they had to go up against the New England Patriots, just bludgeoning their way through that division for 2 decades. So that matters. Also, like, the AFC West has had a playoff team in, like, the Chargers made it last year and should have won that game against the Jags. And the Raiders played it 2 years ago and took the Bengals, who went to the Super Bowl, down to the wire. So, like, let's not act like that division. On top of this, there's now 2 Hall of Fame coaches in the AFC West on top of Andy Reid. There's Sean Payton that's going to restart that franchise with the Denver Broncos. And, oh, yeah, Jim Harbaugh now just entered the chat.
That's right.
With Justin Herbert. So let's stop acting like the AFC West is some bad division.
Cutter Thomas, great point here. He says we're going to learn a lot about this team and about the Bengals roster this season, coming in with a 4th-place schedule. I mean, the schedule is a really good one for the Bengals. I mean, as far as, and the thing I continue to bang the drum on over and over and over, and it blows my mind how nobody in this town seems to care. In a city where the baseball franchise, and look, this is done a 180, okay? Because for decades, everybody killed Mike Brown, right? And talked up whoever owned the Reds, even though they never won anything, okay? But Castellini would find some years to go out and spend some cash on the team. He has done that. Has it turned into success? No. But has he tried to do it a lot of years? He has. Maybe not to the liking of a lot of the fans, but he has spent some seasons decent money. I am blown away by the number of people that just don't seem to care. And we talked about it a lot on the show. That don't seem to care when the Bengals are sitting 10, 15, 18, $20 million under the salary cap. I don't know how you can look a fan base in the eye and say we are trying to win when we are $18 or $20 million under a salary cap. You can go find 1 or 2 difference makers, and I used Jadeveon Clowney as an example this past before the season ever started. Why not go sign him? Why not go sign him? Not going to cost you anything. Better give him $7 million. You're still 11 under the salary cap. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, Tom, I'm getting more frustrated with it too because the other teams, they do spend the salary cap, and when they need to go get a guy, they get guys from their practice squad. A lot like what happened this year with the tight end position. And it's like, why do we not have the depth there? Why don't you trust any of those guys to come in and help fill in? Why do you have to have $10 million in cap space to just roll over the next year? You're never going to use it. When are you going to use that money? You got to use it now. It's all or nothing now, baby, because you wasted a year because Joe Burrow got hurt. Now we gotta spend to the actual cap.
I'm just amazed. I mean, look, Mike Brown doesn't make himself available to the press. He does a little press conference and a sit down with all the writers and TV people during training camp. Duke Tobin will not talk to anybody once the season starts. Does no interviews, and I have incredible respect for both of those guys at what they do and who they are and the kind of people they are. I really like Mike Brown a lot as a man. And I really like Duke Tobin a lot. I don't know him well. I don't know either one of them really well. But what I do know, I really like them both. I have incredible respect for Katie Blackburn. She's one of the most powerful women in the National Football League. She's grown up around this stuff. She knows what's going on. The business side, the salary cap, all of this kind of thing. She knows what she's doing. So you can't ask any of these people because they don't talk to the media once the season begins. You can't ask them, hey, You're $18 million under the cap. Why? I would just love to hear the answer to that question. Why? Based on what you just said, right?
Yeah.
You can't carry it into the next year.
Well, you can.
Well,
just
you know
not,
what
not
I'm
a lot.
saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is by the $18 million you did not spend this year, you don't get an additional $18 million on your salary cap because you didn't spend it this year, and you can use it now next year.
Right. It's only $10 million. It's only a certain amount that gets rolled over, and they never use it anyways, so it just doesn't matter. It's just always floating out there for no reason. It makes no sense to me. The great teams, they're able to find guys to elevate from their practice squad, and they go out and they do a serviceable job for the time that they are missing their players. So be it. I don't know. I get more and more frustrated thinking about it because it's like we even had Duke Tobin say that he's going to spin to the cap this year. And then we have $10 million left over just floating around for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
We cut guys like La'el Collins, who could have been great depth. I mean, we didn't need it this year because the offensive line was healthy, but when does that usually happen?
Yep.
That's once in every, 5-year venture that you have a year where you have no offensive lineman injuries.
Yep.
So I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. All right, let's get to some ad reads. We got to talk about Jim Harbaugh a little bit here. This is the biggest story in sports today. It may not be here locally, but it's the biggest by far nationally. In Harbaugh leaving Michigan, won a national championship, and now going to the Chargers. And you were talking about it earlier. We'll get to your thoughts on this, Casey. They have a lot of major issues with the Chargers about salary cap. They're way over.
Yep.
Right? They got to start cutting some guys. We'll get into all this. I think they're like $40 million over. Now, there's the flip side of it all, right? So you're asking Harbaugh to come in. They're going to hire a general manager out there to, the owner is the guy who hired Harbaugh, Spanos. Those are the guys that hired Harbaugh. And they're expecting results right now. But will his hands be tied that first year on the job? Or can he do what he did with San Francisco? They were a mess. They were a mess when he took over. And look what happened in short order. All right. Ad reads, and then back with Harbaugh. We got Chad Brendel coming up at 11:30 today to talk about the UC Bearcats. No games until the weekend for UC or Xavier. I know you guys covered the Xavier stuff yesterday. Mm-hmm. We didn't get into a lot of UC stuff. We still have not done our picks from last weekend. And so we need to walk through some of those. You have a top 5 today, and we have a mailbag.
That's correct.
I want to hear our song again. I've missed it.
That's right.
Right.
It's the best.
Casey, take it away.
All right, Tom. The Bengals Bearcats report, the future Bearcat report, by the way, is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with the suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency. And
I'm going to make this.
Productivity.
Yeah, I guess productivity.
Productivity. The path to innovation begins here. Visit encore.tech. Let me tell you about this lovely bottle of water right here. Pahhni water. Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pahhni Water at PAHHNI water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Drink lots of coffee from UDF. Swish it down with some Pahhni water and get your technology solutions from Encore.
The path to healthy water begins here.
Here.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. As always, give us a like on the stream. We love you guys so much. Subscribe.
Comment after the show.
Do that. We
comment after the show.
We have some videos.
Yeah, tell us what your favorite thing about this show was.
Yeah.
Or your least favorite thing.
Yeah, tell us your least favorite thing, too.
Yeah.
So we can get constructive criticism, please.
Do you think the Bengals are better now than they were?
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
If you guys haven't been seen, follow at Chatterbox Bets, right? That's
right.
At Chatterbox Bets.
Or at C-Box Bets, yeah.
At C-Box Bets on Twitter. Chatterbox Bets is the name on it. But we've been 7-2. 7-2 over the first 3 days, so on fire.
That's pretty impressive.
Casey's undefeated. So
Mr. 3-0.
Yeah, Mr. 3-0 over there. So we're having a lot of fun doing that. There's some more some other stuff. Kirby had his Chatterbox Reds
That's
last
right.
night, so be sure to
They had a little
check the
round
replay.
table.
Little round table discussion. I think he has a video coming out talking about Ellie De La Cruz. Casey, put the Discord. Put the Discord in the chat.
I gotcha.
We'll get that share link. Hop in the Discord. We have a lot of fun. Tom likes to make fun of it, but we have a lot of fun. Elliot likes to make fun of it, but we sit there and we chat all day. Just chit-chat.
I come in the Discord every once in a while.
Every once in a while, well, like you're yelling at Mark for not putting his bets out there, and he puts his bets in the Discord.
Yeah, but when you share it to the public like he does, and again, Mark's one of the hottest gamblers on the planet right now. If you don't know Mark Fetters, you go follow him on Twitter. He's red hot. But Mark, if he's gonna post the result on X.com, all his winners, and he has a winner every day, you got to share it with the Twitter people too. You got to do both.
Well, I tailed Mr. Mark Fetters, and thank you, Mark, for that huge win last night. That was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, not only is the Discord just the chat outside the show, but you get a ton of bets from everybody. And there's a lot of hot hands right now. Mark is just one of them at the current moment. And, definitely check it out. We have like 220-something members in the Discord.
Yeah,
so
it's fun.
Yeah.
Molly put in a fun chat. Reed talking about the Cubs is the worst. It will happen. Listen, guys, there's two things.
Why would you write that about yourself?
Here's the thing about my Cubs fandom is I have been beat down for my Cubs fandom by two people, my closest friends and all of you guys. You hate it so much. I could talk about the Cubs as passionately as I talk about the Bengals 10 times over, but you guys don't like it. You guys hate when I do it. So I try to build up as much equity with you guys as I can. And, come baseball season, I might just tear it down. We'll see what happens. But that's months away. We'll have fun not talking about the Cubs for right now.
Yeah, it would be fun if they came in last place.
Favored to win the division.
That's wild.
Why?
They made one move,
Yeah, but they were already the best team in the league, and they have the best farm system.
but they weren't the best team because they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, well,
So I guess that's semantics, or
correct.
I think the Reds should go out and get Bellinger. That would be fun.
Bellinger wants like $200 million, I'm pretty sure.
Pay it.
It's a bold.
Pay it.
Yep. Hey, you guys made fun of the Cubs last year for signing Bellinger to a $17 million deal, and you guys went out and signed Frankie Montas to a $16 million deal. He got all of 4 outs last year. I'm sure that one will pay out. And you know what? The Brewers signed a guy for $32 million. He got exactly 0 hits last year, but he was hurt. But so was Frankie Montas. So we'll see what happens.
If the Reds stay healthy, World Series bound. That's a guarantee.
Yeah. I will say something about
World Series bound.
If nobody gets hurt, not one person, and misses any time whatsoever, the Reds are going to the World Series. That's a promise.
Here's the thing. I saw we were just talking about our Discord. Ricky Logan, I love you to death. He put in his projections of all of the Reds position players this year. He just spit it out there. Their home runs, their RBIs, their slash line, batting average, OPS, all that good stuff. And he had like the worst hitter being an all-star level player. And he's like, I project this team to win 88 games. I was like, Ricky, if all of these guys hit like this, the Reds will win 110 games. He had like the worst hitter being Jonathan India, batting 260 with a 380 on base percentage, and hitting 25 home runs and 80 RBIs, and that was the worst guy in the lineup.
Let the fans be optimistic here. Let's give the fans some hope. God knows Reds fans have earned a little bit of hope over the past 25 miserable seasons.
They have.
Hope and
It's
change.
been longer than 25.
30.
No, actually, they haven't been they haven't all been miserable. The 2012 club just choked. I mean, you can call it whatever you want to call it. They choked. When you're up 2-0 and you win the first 2 games on the road, in a best of 5, and you haven't lost 3 in a row at home all year long, and you lose 3 in a row, that is spitting the bit. End of story.
Yeah, that's
End of story.
That's the very worst feeling I've ever felt.
Yeah, I mean that was brutal. Okay, let's get into Jim Harbaugh here for a minute because look, this guy, even more so strangely, or maybe to some not so strangely, the most coveted guy out there ahead of Belichick. Belichick's won 6 Super Bowls. Jim Harbaugh has won no Super Bowls. Harbaugh has won a national championship this year in college football in Michigan. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. We talked about it. Started his coaching career after he quit as a player, University of San Diego, goes to Stanford, had some good years there, goes to the NFL, 49ers, Last year was 8-8, had some issues with ownership and the GM. Off he goes, back to Michigan, win-win. Well, I'm not going to say win-win, because it was only about 3.5 years ago there were people wanting him fired at Michigan. He had gone 0-5 against Ohio State, against Urban Meyer. And people are saying, this guy can't run with the big dogs, right, on the college level. Well, last 3 years he's beaten Ohio State. He's won the Big Ten championship, wins a national championship, and everybody and his brother wanted Harbaugh. All right. Let's start from Harbaugh's standpoint. He was pursued by everybody. Is this the job? Casey, I'll start with you because you're a football guy. Is this the job that he should have taken? All things being equal, okay, we love the quarterback, or some people love the quarterback, right? Talented cat, no doubt about that, right?
Right.
Okay. But with all the other myriad of issues that franchise has, okay, with being over the salary cap, some key players entering free agency, it's basically going to be a roster overhaul for Harbaugh. Whereas in Atlanta, let's say, he doesn't have a quarterback, but you've got some nice pieces in the grand scheme of things in Atlanta compared to LA.
Right. So I was just trying to mess with some of these numbers here. They are $45 million above the cap right now. The Chargers.
Yep.
And they've got some huge contracts. Khalil Mack right now, he's got a $38 million cap hit this year, or this upcoming season. Joey Bosa is $36 million. Keenan Allen, $34, because they just kept pushing those contracts back. And this is the thing that you have to deal with when you start doing that. All those people that say the cap doesn't exist, well, this is where you're paying the price. There's a couple things that they could do that I feel like maybe help alleviate that. I wonder what sort of contract he got, because if it's more long-term where he can actually start year one with basically like a mulligan, I guess. I mean, you could trade some of these guys. Like, you could probably get a huge haul for Joey Bosa. You could probably get a good trade deal for Khalil Mack, and you are very close to getting above the cap space. I think the issue is there's really like 4 or 5 guys here: Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and probably Corey Lindsey, that center that they have there. Yep. Those 5 guys, those contracts are just so huge. It's really hard for me to see him being able to not cut or trade one of these guys to make it make sense, because they're losing a ton of free agents this season. And it's just hard to build a roster when you're so strapped for cap. And I think, too, like they don't have a great track record in drafting guys. I think the Quentin Johnston draft, the last year's draft, was such a huge miss for the Chargers.
Well, but you got to wait and see on those picks. I mean, I think we're so quick to judge on a guy 1 year. You don't know. I mean, there's some guys that come out and they're an instant hit. And there are other guys that, okay, maybe it's the first time now they're a professional. It's a whole different lifestyle. You're on your own. You're not coddled like you were in college. I am by no means throwing in the towel on Quentin Johnston yet. Not yet.
Yeah, well,
1 year?
Well, all that being said,
I understand what you're saying, though. It was a miss this year.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, I do think he made the right decision, because there's one very, very, very important part for a coach to get right, and that's the quarterback. And I think they got the quarterback right. I think they have Justin Herbert there. They can win a Super Bowl with Justin Herbert if they get the rest of the roster right. Now, that's the tough part. Can they get the rest of the roster right? I think they can. I mean, it's just this year that's really bad for them. 2024, like I said, they're $45 million above the cap. Next year, they have $112 million to play with.
Right.
And they just got some monster contracts this year that's just really dragging them down. I'm sure they'll figure something out with a trade or cuts. And this year will probably be tough. But following that, I think that they can really build out a good roster and put some talent around Justin Herbert to really win some ball games. Now, in terms of winning right away, I think you go to somewhere like Atlanta, because that division's awful, and you get your choice in quarterbacks, and you have a lot of bullets in the chamber to go move up and get your guy in the draft. But there's never a guarantee like there is when you got Justin Herbert as your quarterback.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Here's the thing about Harbaugh going to the Chargers. And I know they have all those problems that you laid out there, and they do have some big gaps to fill and some problems, some fires to put out. But the second that good quarterback, good coach combination doesn't win in the NFL is when I have to rethink what I think about the league. And I think Jim Harbaugh, I think he's one of the best 5 football coaches in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Justin Herbert is an elite talent. Obviously we haven't seen him have the postseason success that other quarterbacks have had, but during the regular season he looks absolutely unbelievable. He can do things with the football that very few quarterbacks can do. So if you're asking me how Jim Harbaugh is going to do with the Chargers, I think that's just another pillar in the pantheon of these AFC teams that are very, very good. I mean, the AFC truly is a gauntlet, and this is just another piece. I do think it's surprising that with Harbaugh having his pick of the litter on these teams, he decided to go to the team that's in the same division as the Chiefs. That's certainly interesting, but it's the best quarterback available. And as I mentioned, good quarterbacks, good coaches, they win in this league. That's over half the battle is getting those two figured out. So I think this is absolutely going to be – I think Jim Harbaugh is going to turn this thing around immediately because that's what he's done everywhere he's gone.
Yep.
That's what he's done everywhere he's gone. If Herbert can stay healthy, they'll be great.
Yeah, I believe Eckler is going to be a free agent, right? Is that what I'm seeing, Casey?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think
Eckler.
Eckler's gone. I think Gerald Everett's gone. Guyton's gone. A lot of guys are gone from the Chargers, which is probably be a good thing for them. I think this is going to be a reset. I think this is going to be about a 1 to 2 year rebuild. Most likely just 1 year. I think this next year is going to be bad. You get through
I disagree.
it. Really?
Yeah.
I think
look at their schedule.
I think if you get through this year, and they can still make the playoffs. Hell, we thought the Texans were going to be terrible. Their over under was 6 wins. They made the divisional round. So what do I really know? That's the best part about the NFL is parity. But like Reed says, he chose there because he has the best quarterback available. And this is no J.J. McCarthy situation. And I say that with love and respect. He's going to be able to air the rock out. And that's what the Chargers are going to try to do. I think this year is more of a rebuilding year. They're going to get it reset in Los Angeles. It is frustrating that he picked a place that doesn't have any fan base whatsoever. But I guess he's going to try to grow that as well. I think that's a part of it too. So good for Jim Harbaugh. I think it makes the league much more fun with him in it.
I would have liked to see him go to the NFC. Personally,
100%.
would have liked to see him to go to the NFC, but you're looking at the Chargers schedule just next year. They play a fairly easy schedule. You look at their division, and I know Tom, you and I just talked up that we think the AFC West doesn't get enough credit, but they got to play the Chiefs 2 times. Those are 2 tough games, but like the Broncos and the Raiders both don't have a quarterback at this very moment, so that's pretty. They play the NFC South, the worst division in football. They play all 4 of those teams. Now they do play the AFC North. That's gonna be tough.
Yep.
But then you look at the other teams that they play based on their 4th place schedule. They play the Titans, they play the Patriots, they play the Cardinals. Those are all very winnable games for the Chargers. Like this team not only could win or could make the playoffs. I mean, this could be a double-digit win team. This could be like an 11 win team with, just any competence between like a healthy Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh turning this thing around. Like this team already is a formidable opponent. I'll ask you this. Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers and presumably Bill Belichick with the Falcons, who wins more games next year?
I would think that Belichick.
All right.
Yeah. If he goes to the Falcons. But that's my next question. Is it a slam dunk now? The Falcons have interviewed Belichick twice. They interviewed Harbaugh twice. Clearly, those were their top 2 guys. They've got an owner in Arthur Blank. He's getting older. He's got stupid money. He's one of the wealthiest owners in the league. This guy wants to win a Super Bowl. He's been to a Super Bowl when they had Matt Ryan there, but he's not won one. They have to get Belichick now, right, Elliot? I mean, you have to get Belichick.
Without question. If you do not, and I say this with love and respect, that organization is dead. Because right now they don't have a quarterback. They don't have any quarterback whatsoever.
That's all they're missing.
What was that laugh?
I said they'd be fine.
Without Belichick?
They'd still be a good team without Belichick.
Yeah, they're only missing a quarterback.
Well, that's a big piece.
I know, but
that's a massive piece. They're also missing a head coach that doesn't blow 27-3 leads. So I do think that Bill Belichick going there can save that franchise. I do think, and Reed hates Bill Belichick. He's all the way out on
Bill Belichick.
He's all the way out on Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick is, without question, still the best coach in the NFL.
I do think that Bill Belichick should go to Atlanta. I do think that. I think their defense was already really, really good, and I think him going there would make it even more better. It just would be phenomenal. Just wait and see. I had the same feeling about the Lions, about the Atlanta Falcons. They have a really good roster on the defense. Really, the only thing that they're missing is quarterback. I really do truly believe that. They have the 8th pick in the draft, I think, and they've got plenty of ammo, like I said, to go up and trade for whatever, get their guy that they want. And if it's Bill Belichick, he's going to want to try to go all in because he's
no doubt
he doesn't have much time left either. So
he's got a chance to become the all-time leader in wins.
Right.
And that's what some people are speculating. Like, how much is this, like, does he want to keep coaching or does he just kind of want to get over that hump of all-time leader in wins? I have a hard time believing that Bill Belichick's ego is
I'm with you.
Is pushing his drive to continue coaching. I don't know. I'll put myself on an island here for some reason, just based off what I saw with the New England Patriots in the past 3 years, and they just continued to get worse and worse after Tom Brady left. I just don't think that the Bill Belichick in a new town is going to work. I don't know why. He's more than deserved to be considered the greatest coach of all in the league's history. He's more than deserved that, right? 6 Super Bowls.
Yep.
No one's even come close to that. But for some reason, I just get this weird feeling that it's not going to work in Atlanta.
Well, look, winning, you can become a very popular person. It doesn't matter who you are. If you come in there and win, they're going to love you. And they love football in Atlanta. But it's not a great sports town. It's really not a great sports town. And if you go in there and win, you'll be the guy.
Can I throw a scenario at you to see what you
Sure.
think? So I love Bill Belichick going to Atlanta. What if he brings Kirk Cousins with him to Atlanta?
Well, I mean, there's a big article today in The Athletic about the pros and cons of Minnesota signing Cousins. They're re-signing Cousins. There are pros and cons. And, you walked away from the article thinking, based on the owner's comments, based on the coaches and the general manager's comments, you could flip a coin. I mean, Cousins has played on some pretty good teams. And he can't do anything in the postseason.
Not a thing. Not a
But he's better than Des Ridder or anybody else they got. A hell of a lot better.
He's pretty good in the regular season. I do have to recant something. Mr. Mo told me that he agrees with me on the Bill Belichick and Atlanta thing. So I take everything I said back. Bill Belichick's going to win the Super Bowl next year because me and Mr. Mo can't agree on anything when it comes to football. Which of the NFC North quarterbacks that have been linked to the Atlanta Falcons would be more exciting? Kirk Cousins, 35-year-old Kirk Cousins who's had a lot of success, or Justin Fields? Because Justin Fields has been linked to the Falcons as well. Who do you think will?
Well, I mean, if everybody believes that Belichick wants to win and wants to win right now, then you got to go get Cousins.
Right.
But if you're saying to yourself, okay, we have a chance to really build something here. You got Robinson, you got a young tight end, you got a lot of really young, exciting players on that team, and defense as well. And of course, it would all come down to how do you view Justin Fields if indeed the Bears are going to cut him loose and let him go. I mean, there's still all kinds of talk about that. Nobody knows for sure. You can read the tea leaves on, well, they changed this guy and they changed that guy and they made it. They kept the coach, but they changed the coordinator, and all these kinds of things. Nobody knows, except for Kevin Warren, the president, the general manager, and the coach. They're the only ones that know, the people inside that room, what they're going to do and whether they're going to go the Caleb Williams route. That's going to be one of the most interesting moves in the offseason, without a doubt, along with where does Belichick end up? What about Vrabel? Where does he end up? There's some good guys out there right now, and only one of them's off the board right now with Harbaugh.
What do you think happens, and again, not to backpedal here, what do you think is going to happen with Michigan going forward? It seems like, and again, Harbaugh had to leave. This was the only decision he had left, really.
Yep.
Because there are going to be some sort of penalties that are brought down upon them.
Yep.
Do you think he left them high and dry? What happens with Michigan going forward? They're national champions, but you lose your head coach, and you have the cloud of a whole lot of investigations going on around you.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he is leaving in a similar type of situation that Pete Carroll left USC in. Almost identical. Carroll had been a pro coach like Harbaugh. He comes to the college, one of the most elite, decorated programs of all time. In Carroll's case, of course, at Southern Cal, at Michigan, Harbaugh's alma mater. They both go on to win national championships. Carroll won a couple. But when he left, I mean, you talk about, they've never been the same. Think about that for a minute if you want to put it into perspective. The University of Southern California has burned through half a dozen coaches since Pete Carroll left, right? They had Sarkisian. They had Lane Kiffin. They had Clay Helton. They have Lincoln Riley. They've had 2 or 3 other guys in there since Pete Carroll left. And while they've had a good year here, a good year there, they've never been to a college football playoff, not one time. So USC has never recovered. And they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to try and right the ship. And I mean, they're a huge question mark now for this year. They've got guys leaving in the draft. They got the backups who were supposed to take over, quarterback leaving to go in the portal. And everybody's going, what has Lincoln Riley done? He had the best quarterback in the country. Okay, well now let's look at the year Harbaugh's leaving. Off a national champion. Oh, and by the way, one footnote to the Pete Carroll thing. It was so bad there, they took away Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
Took away the dude's trophy.
Do you think he made a fake?
Knowing him, I doubt it. But now you look at Harbaugh, okay? Everybody off that Michigan team is walking out the door. Everybody who's anybody, right? They got offensive linemen. They got defensive players. Corum, the running back, gone. J.J. McCarthy declared for the draft, gone. We've talked about their recruiting class. It's been abysmal. Hadn't been great the last few years, and they've still developed players and done a good job. Great job. Won the whole thing. But what if there are 2 investigations now going on around the Michigan football program, the sign stealing allegation and another one involving some computer, and I don't even understand what the deal is there, but the FBI is involved in the other one. What if they hand down, let's say they don't take away any wins or vacate a national championship, but let's say they say, okay, we're going to reduce your scholarships by X amount. Let's say we're going to ban you from a postseason bowl game for 2 years. But I'm just throwing them out there, hypothetically. I'm not saying that is going to happen. I'm not saying it should happen. But let's just hypothetically play this game for a minute. I think a lot of us forget, after Lloyd Carr left Michigan, Michigan's football program was an unmitigated disaster. Go look at the numbers. Whether you're talking about Rich Rodriguez or you're talking about Brady Hoke. I mean, they went 15, 18 years. Michigan, arguably the top 3 biggest brand there is in college football. It's a bigger brand than Alabama. Not the success of Alabama, but a bigger brand than Alabama. They flat out stunk. Even Harbaugh's first 2 or 3 years there, they were talking about firing a guy. Urban Meyer's running circles around this guy, putting 60 points on the board against this guy. Don't think for a second that just because Harbaugh leaves, and you're going to read all about Sharon Moore and how great he did last year, and you will never be able to take that away from the man. And he might turn out to be the next Nick Saban. I have no idea. But anybody who thinks that Michigan's going to pick right up, especially the possibility of staring down the barrel at some kind of NCAA punishment, that thing could fall apart in a heartbeat.
I agree.
And I don't want it to happen because I think it's good for college football. when Michigan's good. I really do. I think it's really good for college football. There are certain teams out, and the same can be said for USC. College football is better when USC is good. This year, Texas was good. College football is better when Texas is good. Right?
That's right.
Same thing with Ohio State. The Alabama thing's going to be interesting because people forget how bad they were. Oh, boy, how bad they were after Gene Stallings left. And you had the Mike Shulas of the world, among others, that came rolling through there. All right. It's time to bring in our buddy Chad Brendel. We haven't talked to him since the new year. So, Chad, an official Happy New Year to you, young man. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, one of the things I love, and I've told you this about listening to you when you fill in over on the radio, which is a pretty regular basis, that music, I wish we could run it. You can run that music at iHeart. We can't do that here. It bums me out.
I wish you could as well. I mean, it was always when the Zebra used to produce that show, he struggled a little bit. He's not as familiar with 90s hip-hop as he needed to be, but he got there. Took him a little time, but he got there.
Zebra, any comment on that?
Well, I tried, and again, I've talked with Chad about this. I tried to play early 2000s country music, and it just didn't have the same vibe. So Chad instructed me. We had a long sit down after one of the shows. I think he hosted Sports Talk one night on 700, and he said, "Elliot, you got to be better. You just got to be better at this." And I've tried. So Chad, thank you very much for teaching me the art of good music.
Sometimes you just have to be better.
That's right.
Sometimes you have to be better.
I mean, but you pull out stuff, you know, that 90s for me wasn't the same because I'm older than you are, Chad. So, you know, I mean, that 90s for me was a different kind of time. I mean, so you're pulling out stuff, and, I mean, I've shot you a text before, and I've said, man, what was that song? What was that song? What's the one you always play that you when you first start? I love that
International
song.
Players Anthem.
What's it called?
International Players Anthem by UGK and Outkast.
There you go. You're a big Outkast guy, Reed.
Love Outkast.
Big Outkast guy. Okay. But that, I mean, you know, that Chad, that hip hop, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but, you know, my kids are now in college. Okay. You have a younger daughter, right? That's not quite 13, that age yet. Right. Okay. But, you know, when you listen to, and I always grew up as a big Motown guy, right? I actually saw the Jackson 5 in concert when I was like 7 years old living in Virginia Beach, Virginia, back when Michael Jackson was Michael Jackson, okay? So I've always grown up and loved that. But the 90s hip-hop had still some of that in there, that soul sort of R&B feel. The stuff my kids listen to now, and I know I sound like an old man because I am an old man, there's nothing similar to that kind of music. Am I right on that?
No, you're right. Like Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Outkast. Like there was a lot of still that old influence, and it doesn't unfortunately exist anymore. I wish it did.
Right.
Because
I wish it did
that's
too.
my stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. I love it. All right, I want to get to the we were talking about college football and talking about Harbaugh. You follow college football religiously. You follow the UC Bearcats. We'll get to them in a second. But I'm interested in your take on what we were just talking about in regards to Harbaugh. People forget how bad Michigan was there for a long, long time and how bad USC has been really since Pete Carroll left. I mean, they're not what they used to be. Could you see this happening at Michigan again?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty fine line that they're going to have to walk because they didn't recruit Ohio very well for a long time, and that has always been kind of a staple of what they were able to do to be successful. Harbaugh, because of his ties to the NFL, kind of opened up some doors for them on the recruiting trail that I don't know that Sharon Moore, if that's what direction they end up going, everything seems to point that way. He's going to be able to just jump right in and not miss a beat on the recruiting front. I think there's going to be some momentum lost there. And as soon, I mean, I've heard talks of, maybe Jesse Minter heading out to LA to rejoin Harbaugh. That defense has been kind of the key to what has made Michigan great. anymore with the transfer portal and the way things work, it can fall apart quick. I mean, if they keep Moore, they'll probably keep it intact for a little while. But keeping that train rolling at the rate that they've had it going is not going to be easy. Now, do I think they're going to fall off a cliff? Probably not. But I think it's going to be a challenge for them over the next 2 years or so.
Okay, let's shift gears to UC football before we get to basketball, which everybody's talking about these days around here. What's the offseason been like? I know, 10, 12 guys in the portal here, recruiting class. What is the state of UC football here in really the first full offseason under Satterfield?
I think there's been some pretty good momentum. With the guys that you were able to retain, Dante Corleone, Luke Kandra, Mason Fletcher. You kept a core group of leadership that I think is going to be necessary to take the next step forward. I know, there's been comparisons all over about the Tuberfield era equaling what we're seeing here in the Satterfield era. And I don't think that's it. I think if you're looking for the comparison, it's Butch Jones. Butch Jones' first team went 4-8. And then they reorganized. They got their leadership group together. They didn't have people that were still kind of pulling in that Brian Kelly direction. And they went on and, split a Big East championship the next year. Do I think this team's going to split a Big 12 championship next year? Probably not. But I do think they are starting to set their foundation. And then they went out in the transfer portal and filled a bunch of needs. They had a ton of needs in the defensive secondary. They had needs at linebacker, wide receiver, running back, and they went out and improved the roster. This is how college football works now, Tom. Every year you take the bottom of your roster and you politely have conversations with them about their future with the program. And you try to fill what you move on in the bottom of your roster with guys in the top to middle of the roster. And it looks like that they did a good job in that direction. And that's the only way you get better quickly in college football now is you have to have more top to middle of the roster guys.
All right, let's shift gears to the basketball team. Your BCJ podcast, you talk about it all the time. I want to – look – I'm not telling you anything you've forgotten more about what's going on with UC basketball. I mean, I've always been a UC guy going back to when I did the games on television, okay, back when Hugs was here in the whole 9 yards. The vibe around the program, I think, from an interest standpoint, from an enthusiasm standpoint, I think it's as high as it's been since Huggins left here. I think that there is a great amount of enthusiasm and hope for this program here in what has been so far the first year in the Big 12. But, as we know, so far it's been a losing record in the Big 12. They had 4 losses in January, I think, by a total of 13 points. At the end of the day, what needs to change and change right now for this Bearcat team to start winning these games instead of just good enough to lose?
Well, they did. To be fair, the first 6 opponents were all ranked teams.
Yeah.
So 4-2 is. It feels like ultimately we'd be looking at this a lot different if they would have gotten one of Oklahoma or Texas.
Yeah.
Because it felt like those games were there. Those were teams that were equally talented, but Cincinnati was at home. They needed to win one of those 2, and we'd be having probably a much different conversation. The biggest thing I see right now is consistency on offense because there are too many, the splits are too wild. There's been 3 really good games offensively and 3 games that are just under 40% from the floor, under 20% from the 3-point line, 50, 60% from the free throw line, 16, 17 turnovers. And in this league, that's going to burn you more often than not. And the crazy thing is, if you think about it, we're not talking about in those games where they were off that they have to make some sweeping improvement.
Right.
Because the numbers are terrible and they're losing by 1 possession or 2 possessions. So that tells you one made open three, one made, 1 or 2 more layups finished at the rim. And this team is looking at a much different light. Now, the schedule, I don't want to say it lightens up because there is no lightening up in this league. But the schedule is not the gauntlet that they went through in the first 6 games. But the bottom line is you've got to get over the hump. You've got to figure out 22 seconds left, game on the line, who gets the ball, who wants the ball, and is going to be able to go make a play. And I think they are still figuring some of that out with a fairly new team. But it's got to happen quick because the longer it takes to happen, the more the math starts struggling to math. Like if they don't get both of these next 2, the numbers, I think they need to get to 9 to feel like an NCAA tournament team. And through 6, they've got 2. So you got 12 left, and you got to get 7 and 5 out of that 12. West Virginia on the road next week, UCF at home Saturday. If you're not 4 and 4 after that, you got to go on a hot streak. You got Houston twice, Oklahoma again,
at
Iowa
TCU.
State, Kansas State, at TCU.
Yep.
So you start doing the math, and the numbers don't really add up. So it's frustrating because they've been close, but there is a path forward if they can get these next 2 under their belt. And then at 4 and 4, you feel pretty good over the final 10, that you can get to 5 and 5.
Okay. Tell me one thing that in your conversations with players or just your observation in general, tell me something we've learned about Wes Miller this year with better talent, better team. What have we learned about Wes Miller this year that we didn't know last year?
He fully embraces Bearcat basketball. What has this team done in the Big 12? They have defended at an elite level, and they have hit the glass.
Yep.
And rebounded the snot out of the ball. And I don't know. I mean, for the 30 years that UC basketball has been prominent in my life, those were the staples.
Yep,
Those were the
by far.
non-negotiables.
Yep.
Play hard, defend, rebound, and you're going to give yourself a chance far more often than not. And that's what this team looks like. So, it's still a progression on offense. I think, you're still getting that higher level of talent into the program as you transition from the American to the Big 12, which is necessary because, like, if you watch these other teams in the Big 12, they've all got a dude. They've all got a guy that you have to fear is going to put 25 on you every night out. And I don't think Cincinnati quite has that yet, but they make up for it in those areas, and that's UC basketball. And I think if you're a UC fan, that's what you don't want to lose your identity. You don't want to lose what made you, one of the 10, 15 best basketball programs in America. And I think Wes has shown this year he's up to that challenge of my teams are going to do the things that are non-negotiable.
All right, Chad, we always thank you for your availability to come on and join us today. We thank you so much today. Hope you and your daughter are doing well, and it's great to see you again, my friend. Be well.
Great to see you, too. It's almost AAU volleyball season. So
Ooh, that means you'll be traveling all over the place, right?
Yeah, we're in Indy. I don't think I'm going to get to make the game Saturday because we start at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and I think her last game potentially is at 7 p.m.
Yeah. I got a lot of friends. My son did the lacrosse thing, but they don't play games like that like volleyball does. They
just churn them out all day.
All day long. All right. I'm sure you're pleasant to be around by the time you hit about 4 or 5 in the afternoon on those days.
I'm pretty quiet. We actually have an awesome group of parents.
Okay.
That are good.
You don't
to
get a
hang
little
out
edgy.
with.
You don't get a little
No, not really. Not really. As long as they're playing pretty well. I'm pretty quiet. My dad was always the guy that would sit out. I played baseball, won a city championship, not whole. But he would be the guy that would sit out in like right field by himself and just watch games. And I don't make a lot of noise when I watch games. I like to observe. Still learning volleyball.
Yes. God, I wish I would have been like that.
Same.
I wish my dad would have been like that.
Quiet
I told him to shut up in the middle of a game. All right. Chad,
Maybe that was my dad's plan. He sat out in right field so they couldn't hear it.
Well, it's probably a very smart move on his part. Very smart move. Chad, have a good day,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Nice seeing you.
Love you, Chad.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so
Yep.
this weekend you got the UC Bearcats will be playing UCF. It's funny, he just said there's no layups in the conference. Yeah, UCF has beaten Kansas this year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, UCF's not ranked, but you look at some of the teams that they've beaten and some of the teams they're competing with in this conference, they're a lot like UC in a lot of ways. I'm not saying style of play, those kinds of things. I think UC has a better team. But they have played quite well compared to what most people thought they would in their first year of the Big 12 Conference. This is no pushover.
No, but here's the thing about UCF, and I say this with love and respect. Their last performance, I believe it was their last performance, they shot 7 for 44 from the field. That's 15%. They scored 42 points. They scored 42 points against Houston. So they have the ability offensively to just be one of the worst teams you've ever watched. That is where UC needs to take advantage of. UC's been incredible defensively all year long. This is a game where you don't let them score at all. Don't let them score at all. UC can win this game scoring 50 points. That is how bad they've been. That's how bad they've been offensively. So, but saying that, Tom is right. Any game in this conference is not a walkover, not a pushover. So UC has to show up, and they can't treat it like it's a bye game.
I mean, look at some of their games just here, over in the month of January, right? They beat Kansas 65-60. That was at home. They go on, they come back home, they play BYU, they only lose by 5, right? They beat Texas at Texas.
Yeah.
And scored 77. When you just look at their scores, you're right about their offense. It looks like their defense, and we'll know more about UCF tomorrow and this team and the matchup because we'll talk more about it tomorrow. But, I mean, they're hanging in there is the bottom line.
Yep.
They're hanging in there. And I think most people thought, even UC fans, we saw what happened to UC in the football season, and we thought the football team was going to compete in the Big 12, right?
I did.
Well, okay, yeah. And, I mean, it was a disaster. I think everybody felt like these American Conference teams walking into the Big 12 was an automatic train wreck. UC's played well. UCF has played. We knew Houston would play well. They're a top 5 team. But even BYU coming into the league, they've played very, very well.
Yeah. And you look at UC football, that schedule, it was a pretty winnable schedule.
Yes, it
all
was.
things considered. It was a pretty, like if your first season in the Big 12 was that schedule, you'll take that 10 times out of 10. The basketball schedule, on the other hand, nobody wanted it. I certainly didn't. I didn't think UC would be losing 6 ranked or playing 6 ranked games, losing 4 of them by a combined 13 points. They have outperformed my expectations by a wide margin. They are a good basketball team. They are a solid basketball team. At some point, and Reed makes his stupid little jokes about moral victories, at some point, the moral victories have to stop, and you have to win these games. And there's no bigger test than that on Saturday. You have to take advantage of UCF here. You have to beat West Virginia, who is reeling. And then after that, we'll see what happens, because I still don't expect this UC team to go on some magical March run. I don't think they're there yet, but they are so close. They are close to being that team. And Chad said it just then, a consistency on the offensive side of the ball. It's like they flip a coin to decide who wants to score the most points on a given night. Sometimes Skillings will drop 27. Sometimes he drops 0.
That's right.
And that can't happen. That can never happen. Simas Lukosius, again, he's played a better season than I would have thought possible for him. But at the end of the day, he's not a great player. He can shoot. He's the best shooter on the team, which isn't saying much. It feels like from 3-point land, he's one of the only two guys that can make a 3-point shot, but still he's not great. And the big men have been okay. I would say they've rebounded the ball well. Defensively, they've been solid. Offensively, they've been terrible. I really don't like what Aziz is offensively. Victor Locken, he goes in and out again on the offensive side of the basketball. And Jamil Reynolds, God love him, I don't think he wants the basketball in his hands on the offensive side. So we'll see where we are going forward. But as of right now, as of this moment, Wes Miller has constructed a team that not only deserves to be in the Big 12, but can win in the Big 12.
You know what's interesting? I love the way he put it, because I love to be able to look at games, something on the weekend. Maybe you don't follow UC closely. Maybe you don't follow Xavier closely. But I love when somebody puts into perspective, like Chad just did, about the rest of their season.
Yeah.
Right? And some people believe they could get to 8 wins and get in the tournament. He just said 9. Okay? So if you look at it that way, these next 2 games, as he just pointed out, I mean, these are games you got to have. You got to have them. You got UCF at home, and you go to West Virginia. Now, UCF just beat West Virginia on their home floor just a couple of nights ago at Morgantown. And they're not the Hugs Morgantown. It's night and day. But, look, these next 2 games are huge for them. You jump over to the other side of town, okay, and you look at Xavier. Okay, now, Xavier had back-to-back must-win games this past week when they had 2 home games against, a couple of teams that don't even belong in the same breath with them. They nearly lost the game against Georgetown, but they won it. That's all that matters. Now, all of a sudden, they are looking for, I heard some people talking about Xavier needs that signature win. They need a hell of a lot more than a signature win. I mean, if they go beat UConn this week, let's just say, for example, the number 1 team in the country.
Right, on the road.
That makes Xavier 11-9 on the season. If they just continue to fool around, win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 2, the rest of it, they're not going to the tournament. They need a lot more than – they're not going to the NCAA tournament with 1 good win the whole year.
Yeah, losing to Creighton. They were up 58-51 at the 10-minute mark.
That's right.
And losing to Creighton. Like, this would have been – if they would have gotten 2 wins on the road against ranked opponents, first playing in front of 17,000 people at Creighton, and then going up to UConn, beating the number 1 team in the country, the reigning national championships at their house, then, yeah, they certainly would have firmly put themselves into very serious tournament talk, right? But, yeah, they dug themselves a hole that I'm just afraid that they can't get out of because they lost to those 2 teams at home early on in the year. Like, if they would have won those games, we wouldn't be talking about this season being dead, right?
That's right.
We wouldn't be talking about it.
That's exactly right.
If they win those 2 games,
they'd be 13-7.
They'd be 13-7 with a chance to beat UConn on the road, and you win a couple games. But now that they've just dug themselves such a hole that I'm afraid they can't get out of. Is it insurmountable? No. But, they're still playing good basketball. They just had a bad sequence around the 8-minute mark against Creighton. If you watch that game, they were playing very well in the second half. They just had a really bad sequence there, about a 2-minute sequence right at the 8-minute mark, and they just couldn't come back from it. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about Xavier. I've brought this up before on the show that I feel like I can give, and this is me being honest here as a sports talk show guy, I feel like I can give honest takes about baseball. I feel like I can give pretty insightful things about football. When it comes to basketball, I watch it with the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old. My dad's, he knows basketball in and out, went to play college basketball, and just never bestowed knowledge down on me. So I watch it, I'm just like, hey, put the ball in the hole, go stop it on the other end. So when it comes to breaking down what Xavier needs to do, I'm not your guy. But, I watch them every night, love them, and, hopefully they can get a win on the road at UConn.
They can make free throws, which I give Xavier credit to that.
They certainly can. They can do that. I'll tell you what, the city of Cincinnati kills it in the moral victory departments.
Oh, yeah, they do.
We Xavier taking on Purdue, Houston, covering against Purdue, Houston, Creighton, and UConn.
Cover machines, baby.
UC going to the Big 12 and
cover machines.
Just getting moral victory after moral victory.
You know what we should do? We should combine teams. Xavier and UC. We make them one super team. Because I'm telling you right now, if UC had Quincy, I think he's shooting like 48% from three-point land on like 150 shots. So that guy's a superstar. But if we were to join a super team, we'd be the best team in college basketball.
I don't know. UConn's pretty good.
Nah, we'd beat UConn.
UConn's pretty good.
We'd beat UConn.
Tom, we got to get Darren Horn on here at some point.
We do. They're playing tonight. They're the same record as Xavier. I think they're 11-9. Xavier's 10-9. They're 11-9. They play tonight. But look, for a team like them in the conference that they're in, we know the drill. There's only one way to get in.
Right, you got to win.
End of story. You got to win the postseason tournament. Because now I tell you one team we never talk about. Maybe we ought to reach out to them because people tell me that have watched them play, and I have not. People tell me that Dayton is a legit team.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good. They're top 20 in the country. They don't need to win their tournament. I mean, they're in.
I think if they keep playing like they're playing, you're right. That's what made me think of them. Is that they're a team that maybe not have to win their tournament and they get in.
I think Sean told us yesterday Lenardi had him as a 4 seed.
I was going to say they're like a 4 seed.
Yeah, I mean they're legit. They're legit. And so all of a sudden that loss to them, even though it was a very ugly loss, that UC loss to Dayton, and it wasn't a home game. It was played in Cincinnati, but everybody that was there was telling you. I had a couple buddies of mine. They said it was 50-50, maybe even more than that pro Dayton than it was UC when they played at Heritage Bank Arena. That loss does not look so bad for them anymore.
Quad one loss.
Yeah.
All of our losses are quad one. We'll take that every day of the week.
I think Delaware for Xavier's a quad 1.
Yeah, that was close.
At home against Oakland.
The fighting Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's certainly close. Do we want to do picks real quick? Casey?
We got a lot of things that we got to do.
In the last 4 minutes. It's fine. Casey, let's do picks real quick.
All right, let's blow through them. We'll hold our top. Can we wait on top 5 tomorrow?
Sure.
All right, we'll do that. We'll wait on top 5 tomorrow. Let's go our picks because Reed is going to be able to stick his chest out here.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, he's undefeated.
Mr. Tom.
Is that right? Undefeated?
I go around the city of Hamilton, and everyone stops me asking for autographs, asking if I'm Mr. 10-0. So, yeah, undefeated through the postseason. And this was, look at that. You guys all love the Texans. I told you guys they didn't stand a prayer. They never stood a prayer.
Good work, Reed.
Yep.
And it wasn't after halftime even a prayer.
No, it was a blowout. That's what the Ravens do, though. But they're going to lose this week.
Rolling.
They're a wagon.
All right. What we got next? Got the pack to cover. Elliot, you took the Niners.
Yeah.
The Packers played better than the Niners here.
I was getting ready to say, the Niners were very lucky. We didn't go into great depth on Monday about that game. They are very lucky they won that game.
Insanely lucky.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, Brock Purdy, I said I gave kudos to Brock Purdy. He played terrible for 3.5 quarters. He had one good drive. The final drive made some big throws. But the Niners have played 2 important games in the last month and have played very bad.
Yeah.
The Ravens on Christmas, which was a month ago, and then this game.
We'll get into some of the numbers tomorrow, but I was looking at some of the numbers for Detroit this year when they play outdoors. They are not pretty. I think that's why Brian Billick was saying yesterday they got no chance to beat the Niners. We'll see.
I don't know.
All right. I don't know either. I don't know. We'll find out. We have no more picks tomorrow.
By the way, I love teams that know they have the worst kicker in the league and then ride with him in the playoffs. Cody Parkey and the Bears that year where he had the double doink to lose. Again, he was the worst kicker in the league that year. Anders Carlton, whatever the hell that guy's name was the worst kicker in every statistic this past season. I think he missed 8 extra points on the year.
Cowboys last year had a terrible kicker.
Yeah, they rode with him all the way through, and that's the reason they are.
But Everett says it's all he won't stop beating the drum. He says kickers don't matter. That's okay. Go ahead. All
right. I'm surprised with this one. I thought you would have picked the Lions here.
Who won this?
Lions
covered. Oh, yeah, they covered. That's right. They got that late touchdown. Yeah. I mean, Reed, just unbeaten. Elliott, solid. You're 2-1 so far.
I'm 2-1.
What are you, Casey? 0 for 3?
No, I'm also 2-1.
You are?
No, you're 1-3. You did Texans. You
I'm
got
1
the,
and
you
2.
got the Packers
okay,
right.
Sorry, I'm 1 and 2.
I'm 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I picked
Texans, Packers, and the Bucks.
I'm 1 and 2. I'm 1 and 2.
I'm 1 and 2.
I'm looking ahead. Sorry.
Okay. What's last but not least?
2
Elliott.
Yeah. Listen, I
Bills played well.
Bill should have won it. And again,
Bills
kicker
played well.
issues. I can't
I don't know
help
if they
kicker
won it,
issues.
but they played well.
Kicker issues.
Yeah. Who knows? I think you know.
Chiefs have Butker.
You know, in all honesty, what lost? I'll say this quick adage. I said this yesterday. The reason that the Bills lost that game is because they started they started getting a little scared when they got near the end zone at that final drive because they're driving downfield, right? Big plays, doing it all, and they look up at the clock and like, hey, if we score a touchdown, there's 3 minutes left for Patrick Mahomes. And they got scared of giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes, so they just started handing it off to James Cook, who's running in the line, losing 2 yards of play. That's why they lost.
That stuff makes me crazy. I lose my mind when announcers and fans start talking about
much time.
the ball back. Take the lead, take a touchdown, and take your chances. Right?
Yep.
All right. All right, do we have a cherry on top today?
We do.
We do.
Yeah, we do. This is it's nothing too special, but Dan Pitcher just recently finished up his press conference, and this is what he had to say about staying in Cincinnati and why he chose to stay here.
Yeah, no, it's huge. There's a lot of people in this profession that I respect who have great perspective, who have reached out to me, and almost to a person, their advice is when you have an elite quarterback, you hang on as long as you can. And we have that here. And not only is he an elite player, but I've gotten to know him so well as a person. He's a special person. He's different. They don't make many like him. And to get to continue working with him day in and day out, knowing that we have a guy that can win us a world championship, it's hard to put a price on that.
Good stuff. Casey, well done.
Thank you, Tom.
That press conference just started about an hour ago. Able to dig it up.
That quote, dare I say, was picture perfect.
Oh, my God.
Yeah! Yeah!
To be fair, I was going to use that one yesterday. I thought it was too corny. But whatever.
It's a good thing you left it alone.
Yeah.
Let the dunce part of the room handle all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. All right, everybody. So any programming notes, anything we got going on today?
Nope, we'll be back tomorrow.
Be back tomorrow on this show, and we have Box Lunch tomorrow, which is your day to host tomorrow, right? Or are we?
That's correct. That I will be hosting Box Lunch tomorrow. It's Quiplash Day for the members. We really enjoy that. Members only stream today for the Madden stream. We're going to continue do another couple games and see how far we can get. So,
are you guys playing like the AFC Championship game this coming weekend, that kind of thing?
No, we started a season. We fantasy drafted a team.
Well, I know that, but I didn't know if maybe you'd evolve now to seeing how this game goes for this weekend as a preview kind of thing.
We could do that.
That's how we place our bets.
We could do that.
We do the Lions versus the.
See, I think it would be great if you guys came back tomorrow. Okay, you did this now, and you came back tomorrow and you said, okay, we played 5 games. Mm-hmm. Chiefs against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Right? And here were the numbers. 4-1 Ravens, 3-2 Chiefs, whatever, right? Same thing on the NFC side. That's just a thought. I'm throwing it out there. It's your deal. I don't want to step on it. All right, everybody, we thank you so much for joining us. Casey, Lindsay, have a great day. Zebra, Reed,
God
have
bless.
a great day as well. Another cloudy day here in Hamilton.
The sun will come through.
Horrible. What a couple of horrible days.
At least it's
weather
warm.
was.
At least it's
guess.
warm. That's
At least
exactly
it's-
right.
I would take this over negative degrees. It was negative degrees and sunny last week. I'll take rainy and 40 all day.
Last week was brutal.
It was people have called me crazy. I think that was the coldest week of my lifetime.
I don't disagree.
I've never seen the river completely freeze, and it was frozen. I've never seen that river.
Did the lawnmower man trim it down?
Shake the ice.
2 hours and 3 minutes.
Yep, 2 hours, 3 minutes in.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you tomorrow.